Friends, I must confess, I am confused. Why is Supreme Isthmus so popular? Could it be the special geology? Could it be the seas? Could it be the hill? We're going to explore all of those little things. I've got a special insight into Supreme Isthmus because there's something you may not know about me. I am from Tasmania in Australia, where we kept a good deal of convicts back in the day in a place called Port Arthur, behind an isthmus, behind a very narrow gap called Eagle Hawk Neck. And it pretty much looks like this, actually. Very similar. And they used to have dogs in dog kennels every 3 meters. And it would stop the convicts because the sea that surrounded Eagle Hawk Neck was infested by sharks, or so the guards would tell the convicts, and they wouldn't even try. And I feel that same psychology is at place in Supreme Isthmus, because there's a lot of units which can traverse the sea, and it's just not really done to its full extent, because it's hard, you've got to think about it. So we're going to explore this a little bit, some things we can do, some sneaky sea things. We also look at some of the geology, the hill, where this is, what the issue is over here with this. And we're going to break down some tips and some plays you guys can repurpose. How we get better at bar is we look at replays. I've looked at 100 Supreme replays lately of high OS replays. And it all begins with tip number 1, which is aggression in the second minute is amazingly effective. Especially ticks and blitzes. That has to happen through the pond. Usually the pond boosts. And we see that quite early on. It used to be you have to boost 4 wind per player. So I guess 2 players had to do it. Now you only seem to need 2 wind per player. The energy seems totally different lately. I don't know why. The energy situation. This partial but enough boost is going to help out orange and light shade yellow. I love Shubu to conquer at the 1 minute mark. And we can see that happen right out of the gates here. Look at the path they're going down here. The ticks forging the way in front of the blitzers. A good little scouting force here. Not stopped at all. Unfortunately, Clinks is just being a little bit conservative on the play. Usually wouldn't expect a front line to put down a radar, but the pawn is a latecomer to covering that spot. It's the 2 minute stage, already too late. How horrible. The last blitz in the conga line is going to move in and around. Take on the laser turret. Perhaps a mistake to actually build that laser turret. Should have been building pawns, but it's actually saved him in this case. 1, 2, 3 mexes are going to go down for the naval player, which is going to change the whole naval player's game, no doubt. Undoubtedly, a huge setback for Eat My Aphis. Nothing will stop these ticks. Nothing will stop the blitzers. The 4 wounded ticks going up and annoying the backline. But Pond is in a very strange spot, including the commanders. Going to be able to stop this. Who would have expected it? A very random series of events. Stopping the blitzers there cold. The ticks continue on. Placement being everything. Taking down 1 more mechs. Only now the mechs are coming back up again. So would be very happy with that attack. Set the northern team back a massive amount. So in these high OS lobbies, that's what I'm seeing every single time. Is a very early attack. About the 1 to 2 minute stage coming down here and here. Obscenely and dreadfully effective when it does work. I've found that before. I used to have a timing attack with Goons, the hovercraft, but it was a little bit later out of necessity. Whereas I think that's just easier to not have to go hovercraft and still have the same sort of effect very early on before the static defenses are up. I just want to show you something coming up to the 5 minute mark, the different eco from the 2 different open sea players. So we've got a Fussy on 2.86k metal produce and Eat My Aphis on 2.2k metal produced. So that's the difference in that aggression. I guess we're seeing about 600 metal, a little bit more. The worse for wear for Eat My Aphis. A tremendous setback, but I was quite happy to compare those 2 players there. Tip number 2. The Isthmus early front meta relies on range overmatch. We cannot imagine the ancient wisdom contained within the noggin of Bark Dog Bark. So right off the mark at the 3 minute 44 second stage, this is the first part of the meta, is the Overwatch super built before the 4 minute mark. with 2 constructors. Units are for fools. It's all about statics defense. Now it's an Overwatch followed by a beamer with only a few rocket bots to cheaply act like something has been done. We also see some Dragon's Teeth put down initially for the rocket bots to cower behind. Of course, this is the excellent counter to Whistlers. So the difference between the two basically being bots are going to allow much cheaper rocket bots and more static defense heavy, whereas Blue's Whistlers, or Lashes here I should say, are going to be slightly more expensive and relying on the units. And so less early static defenses are possible. But we do see a agitator being put down basically at the same time Bark Dog Bark puts down the gauntlet. But I believe Blue will just barely win this race to the gauntlets. And this is at the 5-minute stage, very early on. Someone asked for radar front and Bark Dog Bark is like, seriously bro, I got my radar tower here. But yes, the agitator starts up before the 6-minute mark. That is Blue's plan, which actually Blue has managed to build a decent number of lashes and that agitator up. So they're the two opposing, I suppose, thoughts. Get agitators or build the warden and some rocket bots and then into a gauntlet or agitator. The Overwatch, I think, essentially hard counters the Whistlers and Lashes, which would otherwise completely dominate at this early stage. As I've shown in videos before, however, rocket bots behind enough walls that have a decent spacing between them, so your rocket bots can attack forward if need be, all across the front here would do a possibly more economical job, but that's outside of the meta. Interestingly, Blue has gone straight for a 2 agitator to try and bring down the super healing on the gauntlet, and I think it's going to be actually able to do it. At the same time, we see Bark Dog Bark move down unstealthed. Trying to walk to the enemy base and annihilate it, or at least to the agitators. Was taken down by its destroyer. Oh no. So to recap, we've got 2 strategies that are the meta play. Probably the preferred one is to build bots. First build a few ticks or grunts, build a few faster units to begin with to try and control the middle zone and defend against any ticks or anything like that, and then straight into rocket bots. Bring up your commander fairly early on, super build the warden or build a gauntlet. Also use walls to protect both players here. High OS players have been using walls. If you don't get your walls 100% aligned, you're going to 100% need this warden. But if you are very good at walling, you hypothetically shouldn't need to have that warden there. You just have to build a few more rocket bots. Up to you if you decide what to do. Another meta thing that seems to be done in these high OS lobbies, I'm seeing it again and again, is the comm walk, right? But the problem is running out of energy, so you need to word up your teammates and get them to donate some energy, especially at the 7-minute stage, because that comm walk is going to allow a really good deep strike, preferably to the enemy base here, I'd imagine, because if that blows, the whole player is basically out of the game. So a high risk, high reward maneuver. And Blue is showing their expertise here, rather going a vehicle push straight into lashes or whistlers, and then straight into agitators or gauntlets can be, even building 3 in the end. These are unbelievably important on Supreme Isthmus because it means you can focus down any static defenses the opposition might build, and they really become an area control plasma artillery, especially when you have 3 of them, but even 2 at the 7-minute mark. That was very devastating to basically keep the enemy right back here. So we see in this game, the Warden is dominating the front here. The front has been told to run. The Wardens abound. And we see a slightly different and yet common usage of the frontline units, and that's instead to build these Wolverines to back up the Warden. In fact, not really seeing any other skirmishing units. Very interesting. Other than the solid line of static defenses, but it works. It just seems to work, and the Wardens are super annoying. Albello looking the worst for the wear. This team really got set back early on, and they're managing to actually hold the line and thrive. Of a sorts, at least on Pidmont Bell's side. So another arc wisdom play of the ancients here is to communist rush even. But I don't think so. It's simply Geo with their fast T2 getting out the snipers before the 10-minute stage or in before the 9-minute stage. Changing the whole dynamic of the game and forcing a mass tick response. As we see a hurriedly built bot lab at the 9-minute stage. Commander sniped by the snipers. Hard win for the North team now, putting the Southern team on the back foot. Very well played, especially recovery from the early aggression and just using clinical precision to open up that front line. Pickelstein in a bit of a pickle. The Steen has been removed. The self-bomb has taken out an enemy army at least. Klink's taken down now by gunslingers of all things from Jupiter. What a back and forth treacherous battle this is. It would be a fantastic time to utilise this hill here. Rain hellfire on the front. Tip number 3. Use the hill when losing front. It's somewhat overpowered. We can see these rattlesnakes having a devastating effect with the extra range. The con turrets building it up, the T2 constructor proudly looking in majesty upon the battlefield. What's this? It's the enemy commander. No, the blue commander wreaks havoc. The transporter gets taken down, but Thrawn, I don't know what that means, doesn't care. Builds AA right away. The Starlight's almost taken down. Not quite. Oh, by the way, our front hill commander here did eventually die. Got killed by a couple of bombers. Those AA's done nothing in the end. So despite Blue's best efforts here on the front hill, we see a rattlesnake back again. Already with 14 kills. What a nightmare. The front hill really comes into its own when you're on the back foot. That is when it's really important. But look at these pit bulls up on the front hill. The massive range they have, slowing down this whole attack. They're calling him a troll. Stopping the attack. Not quite the same amount of reach on this side. As we see Blue being able to exploit and get away from some of these defenses. Punishing Bark Dog Bark. There again, the com hits there. The front. Can't quite take it all out. I definitely think the hill needs a sophisticated anti-aircraft up the front somewhere to stop that com bomb attack. Tip number 4. Backline scaling in the current meta is absolutely ridiculous. Well, perhaps not so much a tip and more of an observation. Build like this, super build. I expect it. No less than 500 construction turrets and 57 APHIS in the back line at the 42-minute mark. So, you don't do this. What's wrong with you? And that's the layout of how it's all done, with even some energy converters going up here on the top. Very creative. Essentially, I do wonder if this is slightly overbuilt, but this is the degree in which high OS players actually do scale on Supreme, because if you keep the seas busy and you're able to defend the air, you've only got this little land area here to defend up until late T3, where of course you can get Titans and everything move down here. And yeah, you've basically got an open map again. We're getting to that stage and still APHIS are actually being built. So if you can hang on to this spot, then having all that scaling will work really well. We can just see how crazy and indeed beyond all reason this battle is. With this team finally winning both seas, it's not looking good, however. Big attack here. Making their way through Red's minefield, only to find a whole heap of pulsars. Purple now perhaps regretting just the extreme number of flagships used. 7 of them in the Southern Sea. Look at this. How many marauders? Just printing them out like they're pawns. Quite late in the game, really. And with this super eco. Very interesting strat. I think it might stop being time to stop building APHIS. But no. Just not enough units getting built at the same time. Just making bank. while the front continues to crumble and the situation deteriorates. A massive air battle. Huge stuttering on the screen. Let's slow this down to 0.5 as we see it's over 500 units clashing at the moment. As someone says, technically if you crash the server, the game ends in a draw. So maybe that was the last gasp from the Southern super duper eco team, who I think rather than building all these aphids could have maybe built a few more units before this stage. And so now we see the reason for all these marauders moving through. Will it be enough? Will 100 of them be enough? I'm not sure. I don't think it will be. Oh no, we see something down. One of them came through the edge and took out whatever was here. I think some construction turrets. It could have been some energy converters. So the Marauder's done something. Just don't have the tank to really impact this stage of the game, however. Finally, the bombers come. There we are. Wow. Instantaneous is the first word that comes to mind. Scale like that, guys. You can do it. Tip number 5. The safe spots whence you can flee if sea is lost. So we lose the open sea, a very common thing. Now, don't resign. Don't give up. It happens to all of us. Hide over here, guys. The best spot. It's a miracle spot. It cannot be hit by flagships. The nemesis of this game. Turn yourself into the ultimate backline player. And if you utilize, I suppose, begging for resources, that always helps. Begging for reactors, begging for something. Just concentrate on ecoing up for a bit and supporting the backline. And there is more than enough room in here for this additional third place. For whatever reason, quite often tech doesn't go there. Tech prefers to come up here. If you ever find yourself out of a base, go here. And the reason is, of course, is you fall behind the line here and you're out of the way of harm. Now, another space that's not the worst, if you are pond and you get your ass kicked, is building around here. It's not the worst place to build. If you can bubble up, of course, against the inevitable flagship push, or otherwise push back the flagship somehow, you will survive. And the same over here is relatively safe against missile cruisers and that. And at least flagships have to actually sit right over here and scout you, and then they're vulnerable to a variety of methods. What flagships are most vulnerable to, if you can beg your tech to do it, they're actually vulnerable to Titans, for example. So if they're having to sit around here, the Titan can just come out, start hitting them right away, and the flagship's going to have to retreat back, allowing your bubble to survive. Tip number 6. A few things you can do to win a tight naval engagement. Incredibly important. Basically, you need to win seas to win Supreme Isthmus map. So on about -2 APM at the moment, as I'm very fresh to Navy bar again, this is a very achievable initial strategy. I will say Onos is a very good opposition. So we start off with our submarine attack at the 5-minute stage. We get an opposing submarine that's pushed out fairly quick. The great thing about the eels is they're terrible compared to our orcas. I do miss micro it slightly and get it without the zone of control. We almost get taken down by a construction ship that gets greedy and actually reclaims the wreckage. So we're very lucky there that we didn't get reclaimed, and we can resume the attack on the Navy shipyard here. Now, I think we can take out whatever's getting built in the Navy shipyard. So we've actually shut this down very early on. But Onos is a great player and responds with a coastal torpedo launcher. One of the few cases to actually build it to put away this enemy sub or this early sub aggression. Now, the 2 construction turrets is quite intense for the 6-minute mark, and I'm not used to it. And I'm thinking I'm going to be able to take down this coastal torpedo launcher. I am very wrong. So, a bit of a disaster, and we're also getting chased by an eel of all things. Yeah, this attack didn't go how we wanted to. But that's okay, never despair. All of us C players here that know C are looking at this at the moment, at these wrecks, and thinking, oh my god, you've just lost the game. You've got like 500 medals of wreck here, dude. 750. And here we go, gonna resurrect even, not even gonna reclaim. So it gets the full metal around to turn back on us. That's why we can never give up the aggression. We can't leave this unopposed. So what do we have here? We have a destroyer. Also, unfortunately, we have 2 eels gunning after a construction ship and mexes. We've responded here with 2 orcas. So this is the state of play. Now, the destroyer is a perfect unit for this stage because it completely counters what we've been doing so far. And we're seeing eels on the board, and destroyers hard counter eels. Destroyers are also great because we're out of range of the coastal torpedo launcher. The commander is threatening us, but we can hit the commander with both the gun and the torpedoes. The eels don't stand a chance. This is a 1-unit wrecking ball. We've now defeated those eels that came to raid us, and we'll support the fight. We bring along a couple of frigates, one of them still badly hurt. Now we understand how the base is set up. We're able to take it down quite quickly and easily. There we go. All donesies. If for some reason your opposing naval player is somewhat competent during the T1 phase of the engagement, we can see here a dangerous Eki 9 with urchins backing up the small force of frigate and destroyer. Dangerous enough to basically not be annihilated. Now, what you may decide to do is box in your enemy naval number with, I suppose you'd call it a blockade, wouldn't you? Because it's done with ships. So yeah, we can see that on the map. We've got full map domination around here from blue that can come in from all these different angles and put Eki 9 in a tiny little box. Donnie's trying the sneaky here by putting a stealth radar down the bottom corner. What's this? We see green moving a transport here. So the radar was put down temporarily. And 1 sprinter. Very interesting. Donnie 8 moving down with a lone destroyer. Fight back against the lone orca. What a painful sprinter. This is a good tactic, isn't it? Donnie 18 is deciding on this early battleship before trying to build the T2 mexes. Sitting there with a lot of metal at the moment. Just neglecting the energy slightly. But this early battleship is devastating because Eki 9 has been put under such tremendous pressure, has no money to tech up to T2. Just long-range nightmare. A battleship well outclasses anything T1 can throw at it. Even though they're going to try. And we see here some T2 flaming ships come down the side, take down the frigate heavy force. The destroyers on the other side, they are just gunning for this bait battleship, who's actually getting beat up, but it's taken their whole force to do it. The brimstones taking down the whole swarm. Oh my god, 200 hit points left. It actually does get taken down in the end by a lone submarine. That was a wildly successful attack, however, from Donnie 18. And I think it's all over for Eki 9. The battleship Baitmobile and the brimstones being pivotal there to taking down that would otherwise be a massive force. Putting that latent pressure on the enemy sea is just so important for getting them to overbuild and to basically be able to take up to T2 yourself and win the tightest of naval engagements. In this game, we've got Freaky Buzz doing the boxing in, and Kokodo trying hardest they can to move out without taking too many casualties. But it's not quite working out for them, mainly because of these urchins that have been built here with the aid of about 3 construction turrets, which I really like to see. They are a little bit vulnerable, of course, the construction turrets. They do such a good job of auto repairs on the naval fleet, which is an absolute APM saver, and it's huge. Not enough of them are built, although they are expensive, I'm not going to deny. Overall, however, we've got a sizable fleet here of 8,000 up against a boxing in fleet of a little bit over 6,000, and this is just enough to hold them, or at least make Kokodo cautious to not break out. Now, Kokodo, of course, can maneuver down here and threaten the base, but will expose the own base by doing that. So it turns into a very risky base trade. So what Kokodo needs to do is to be able to take down what is here, but that's not necessarily that easy. Wow, look at this Navy. It's looking... There's a fair old disparity, isn't there? Wow, 3 times the metal weight. We've got a couple of cruisers now, so gonna come down, brave the torpedo launchers. Does the North Navy. That's a very decent push forward. Just trying to test the opposing strength. Now we see these torpedo launchers starting to be worked on and prioritised with S. At long last, a battleship joins the ranks. But possibly too late here, as the base is blown to smithereens. So there you go. Can't quite get the true metal down. Oh, atomic bomber! Took down a decent portion of that Navy. Okay. Unreal. Freaky Buzz now has the slight, not advantage, but morale, let's put it this way. Kokodo acknowledges that with nuke bombers may change that. This Despot arriving just in time to change the forces of battle. Wow, what a long laser this battleship has. Yeah, definitely with a huge disadvantage now. The game has totally changed. It's often like that with air interfering, especially with a nuke bomber before the 20-minute mark. That's hard to defend against. The Dreadnought from Armada looks a lot more quaint, doesn't it? Looks like an actual ship, whereas this thing's just a freak. The laser on the front, triple cannon turret. It only fires 1 plasma at a time. Okay, so Grumpiness assists with some platypus here. Easily torn apart as it wasn't a combined arms attack. That drives them back. And this is very important because it allows the submarines here to come in and start reclaiming, as they should be much faster than resurrecting in this contested spot. So Freaky Buzz lost the initiative a little bit there and got pushed back on their own volition. Of course, just trying to save their big units from the platypus, which they're successfully doing, of course. Can't know that these guys are in such numbers, these resurrection subs, taking over this field. How tight's this? Kokodo driven back. The aggressive resurrection subs starting to get worked on with torpedoes. Still reclaiming though. Fearless. Look at this, almost 1,000 metal going to be reclaimed. So that's their cost right there, reclaimed back. Very brave. Oh, here we go, Kokodo. Moving down, gonna ignite here. Oh, get sniped without taking down a thing. The battleship taking him down. Oh, that was lucky. Bruh. Oh, man. So this is what it takes to win a tight naval engagement. Just everything needs to go your way sometimes. By the way, the Haven is such a good line of sight craft. Look at that, 1,000 line of sight. So the battleships can use all of their 880 range alongside the Haven. Well worth it. Coming in to assault the narrow pass now. Devastating fire. Even the Tigers not able to stand up to this barrage. An air attack underway. Torpedo bombers assaulting the fleet. Not sure if they're going to make it through these fighters. Some of them are. Oh, just about. One stop right on top of the Despot. Going through the deck armor with the torpedoes. But it still remains. That was a crazy sacrifice of torpedo bombers. I dare say the nuke bomber done a better job. Here we go. A very succinct snipe of the enemy Despot, followed by the Buccaneer. Death charge forward of the Death Cavalry. Torpedo for no reason. Resurrecting something behind this battleship fleet who just continues to smash through. Surprisingly efficient. The last Hail Mary. We see here. So we did miss this in this final conflict where we definitely have seen Freaky Buzz taking a massive beating. Is Kokodo actually snuck down some submarines here and basically distracted at the same time they attacked with the battleships up here. So that's how you break out of that containment zone. Freaky Buzz just a little bit neglecting to actually control the sea. Very interesting, just an extreme line of battleships. That won the day there. Wow. So there you go. Hopefully you guys picked up a few learnings from that epic naval win. We see in this red player here a Fussy doing a very similar build to me, not getting the 4th mechs yet, and moving forward right away except with a frigate and a herring. Staying back in the base, and we see the sea control just be really handed over completely to DRM. DRM now is boxing in, blockading red, but I think this is a badly outnumbered fleet. Definitely red has got the superiority at the moment. Not going to last for long now that shipyard's there. But we see this. What's this? Teamwork. Most foul. Fake pilot. Shurikens. Oh no. Very important to scout that this is in place, because look, they've come down a little bit earlier, given red the opportunity to see them and build some extra herrings. Coming in from the flank now. A very dangerous positioning, and definitely got the advantage on blue. DRM falling back in rapid order. Now we see with the commander there, we see a retreat, not wanting to get the forces blown up in a comm bomb, and still having the surround on this DRM force. Quite a significant difference, but DRM's acquitted themselves really well. The maneuver has been solid, and the destroyer's perhaps struggling to land a few hits here. A just-in-time destroyer is going to really help out with the battle. DRM right onto the reclaim. Oh, we actually see some shurikens from the southern team side, from Selv, from both teams actually. So the cat's out of the bag, but DRM effectively it's been a draw, and all the metal goes to blue, which is a little bit unfortunate really. I do wonder where all these reinforcements went. Oh, that's why they're going into this T2 construction at the moment. Dreadful time to be super building the T2 and out of power. So a Fussy dropping the ball there on the eco, and the reinforcements making the difference here. The northern team's shurikens end up punching through. And this might be it. They might be all over. The herring doing a fairly good job, but as you can see, you need to outnumber the shurikens you're up against. A Fussy throwing in the tower with a GG. So I think the learning we can have here, which is a common mistake that even high OS players do, is to not recognise the tactical situation you're in on the ground. The simplicity of Bar is, it is very simple from its core premise, and if you ever lose track of that, that's when you lose games fast. And how this game was lost fast is the metal and the energy weren't exploited to the maximum potential. Over here, there's the cheap energy of the geothermal power plant. All of this was built up. Of course, transitioning into T2 rather fast, but even that was overkill in the end. But we see plenty of tidal generators here. Here, DRM was bringing forward this shipyard to make sure the metal and energy was utilized as fast as possible onto the battlefield. Now, over on a Fussy's side, what did we see? We saw 5,000 metal and energy here or here with a fleet just sitting there. Whereas at least DRM was bringing forward the fleet here to enact pressure, was capturing, using the fleet to capture this. And even then, it wasn't a clearly won battle. DRM really paid a big price there. A Fussy perhaps recognizing how bad things were. But essentially what happened is a Fussy attacked, but was doing this over here and was out of energy. One of the tenets of the game is to use your energy effectively, but if you don't have enough, there's nothing to be used, right? So ran out of energy while upgrading the T2 extractors, went forward, and the thing is, with any battle, what are we told? It's tactics are for amateurs and logistics are for professionals, I think the saying is. And we saw that here because there was no reinforcement of the main battle, where there was quick reinforcement here. That made all the difference. If this production was up to full speed, a Fussy would have run the day. Would have also had some combined arms, so some submarines to take on what? the commander and any loose frigates that were sitting around. That would have been a very effective. Had metal in the bank not getting used efficiently. Both the players did, actually. But I think DRMs was simply from reclaiming there at the end. But yeah, basically, if a Fussy had gotten the energy picture right, had held off a little bit in upgrading those T2s and went max production here, wiped out this base here and reclaimed all the metal, and also contested this a bit more, this northern area, a Fussy would have won. So that's the knife edge this game is on. And really, DRM's ploy here was a little bit risky. I think what would have been better, perhaps, is, I don't know, maybe to have some torpedo launchers or something. It's hard. And lastly, the lesson we can learn from this is shurikens are being used on the field or expected. Don't just put one herring in there and two other things. Go mass herring. I think they're one of those unit people discount them because of the DPS and the life. But herrings can do what? They outrange, which is just pivotal. Not by that much, but it's enough. It's a projectile that actually tends to hit in the missile, and you can surround much easier with a bunch of herrings than one single destroyer, right? Yeah, and then being able to kill shuriken, that would have been massive here. I think if a Fussy had mass-produced herrings right at that right time, game over, would have won it easily. Tip number 7. Did you lose sea fast? Then do exactly this. As inevitably happens when you build one bad submarine, otherwise known as a eel, and the defense didn't quite cut it, and so you died to 3 frigates and a destroyer. Well, in that case, you do this. You build a T2 bot lab, and you build one and only one thing, a platypus, or if you're Cortex, a duck. At 260 metal, fairly cheap T2 unit. Getting super built here takes a few seconds. The stats of the platypus are actually pretty decent. Maybe not decent in a conventional sense. I mean, 1,000 hit points and 75 DPS is no one's idea of a hot time. However, speed is 90. And the range is actually not too bad at 275. So they're very good for getting us around. Now, we actually see about 3,000 or so metals worth of ship here, up against 5,000 metal of platypus. Look at the surrounds they get. Even if it's not a complete surround, it's a surround that takes that destroy down very quickly. So hardly a casualty was incurred, and there's only a very slight metal advantage. So the platypus are unbelievably better than a T1 Navy, and unbelievably faster as well. Being able to get that surround with that many units is so good. So, lose C, don't worry about it. Just build these guys. And if you want to support C, even better. Build these guys. The only thing which narrowly counters platypus, and I'm going to build them now, you're going to see me build them, are the T2 cruisers, in this case the Buccaneer. They cost 4 times as much, but they also have more than 4 times as much DPS. Their range is 500. Their speed is much worse at only 54, but most importantly, they have over 6,000 health. They narrowly are more efficient. They really are, and they're half the speed, almost half the speed. They're objectively a worse unit than what the platypus is, right? Except it's naval, and Navy doesn't necessarily work as you might expect. Because we're owning the sea and we've got full visibility, we're able to counter any pushes of the platypus and simply have to intercept them, and then we're okay. As we slowly bring our Buccaneers up to enough numbers to defend this. We've now got 13,260 metals worth of platypus, and still super building them. Behind these platypus, they're building a advanced shipyard. So we'll quickly be able to be competitive to our forces. So here we go, a full attack against our forces. Now we've got 10,000 in metal. We're again outnumbered metal-wise. Look at this battleship. Isolated, surrounded in no time at all. Basically unable to do any damage with that plasma. Hard countered. Our cruisers, barely able to repel this. But slowly the platypus are getting taken down. We've gone from over 50 to only about 35. But it's totally rolled our force. At least what's there. The orcas cannot hit the platypus, but they can hit these other ships that are hitting us at the same time, the dolphins, who are hitting in an emergency fashion. We've just got a line of buccaneers getting torn apart, although finally the attack is starting to run out of steam. As the numbers dwindle to the low teens here, the buccaneers are able to take them down fast enough in the tail chase. The buccaneers are performing much better because they're not at the surround effect of the platypus. Any effect that surrounds gets up to 200% increase on the damage as they hit, which is such a massive increase to the combat efficiency of the unit we're looking at. So finally, we've fought Oh No's to a standstill. A little base over here is getting taken down by a collection of fast ships and platypus. The dolphins working very well also. Very good units. They work in well with the platypus. Their speed is slightly faster actually, 105. So really, this advanced shipyard was a little bit of a mistake. If Oh No's perhaps had just gone platypus and dolphins, I don't know how it would go. Even though we have got the counter unit, it seems so hard to counter this. We're moving forward with our combination of forces. Always on the aggressive. I'm confident in the cruisers. I think they've got more of an advantage than they actually do have. We see another skirmish here, trying to run away. Being able to deflect some of the surround bonuses to these 4 cruisers here. We are narrowly winning this skirmish, but it's taking everything we have. Fortunately, we managed to interrupt them before they could gather any more forces. This was a very close thing, but it's so important for us to try and maintain the metal advantage and make sure we can reclaim all the metal here. We're now looking at about 13,000's worth of metal. The enemy Grim Reapers are right onto reclaiming. We're going to interrupt this little metal fest party with some torpedoes. Skirmish number 3. Trying to outflank us on either side here. We've got these maelstroms around the side. But just they don't quite have the numbers to carry the day. The platypus don't look so impressive when they're outnumbered by buccaneers. The only thing that's going to stop us are these torpedo bombers, ruining our party at the 23-minute stage. So that is part B of how to reclaim sea. Get your air to help and build torpedo bombers. Because when they do hit, they're not impossible to defend against at all. We just need a few AA ships. But I need time to build them now. And the forces I have on were hard pressed against the enemy sea. I did not have any resources for torpedo bombers. The torpedo bombs I don't actually think hit all the time because of the ground I'm covering. They hit often enough though to be annoying. 1 cruiser down. Platypus skirmishing with us. Yes, torpedo missed. So if you move your cruisers around, they can actually avoid a few torpedoes rather than being a sitting duck. Our air finally assists a little. Now we've got a massive bombing attack coming in. Our AA ships, unfortunately, a little bit too far south to counter this. Good movement here from the enemy air, not flying over all our anti-aircraft fire, which would have been devastating for them. And see how losing the sea advantage and being put back temporarily has allowed the enemy air to come in and smash us. Whereas if we would have owned all this sea, easily I would have been able to counter that air much earlier. It would have been much more dangerous for the air player to attack through. So Oh No's has done a fantastic job of winning partially Seaback with yet another engagement. As we see, we're both leading the team in damages respectively. It's been a bitter war. We have some help from Cat Lordy, who is building a number of platypus. Thank you, Cat Lordy. Turning the tide here of this dangerous battle. I don't think we could have done it, because backing all this up is now a battleship. We've got maelstroms coming around the side. Unfortunately, going to be able to maybe pick off an anti-airship. Maybe not. The platypus definitely made all the difference in the world. We've been able to win that with enough forces that we can take down whatever defences are here, take down this shipyard, and hopefully we've won the sea. Everything's been set back a little bit too far, and ultimately our team is going to lose. Even if you do lose sea, it's not the end of the world. It still pays to contest it and ensure I can't use flagships and missile cruisers. Despite how well we went, it didn't matter because our other opposing sea didn't give up. Tip number 8. Exploit the sea win and how to do it fast. Did you win the sea? Well, an early flagship, that is sure meta. But what it might even be better is this, what we see right here. And that is reclaim your shipyard and build a forward amphibious factory here, just out of range of anything nasty that could hit you, and super build it. Build 24 turrets distributed like this to deliver. Look at this conga line of salamanders. We can see a T2 shipyard has immediately been built in the place of that amphibious complex. Once that pressure was not going to work, and a despot in its place has been built. And this is only the 20-minute mark. So a very quick despot, followed by a jammer ship. So this battleship is going to have the run of the whole coast and be able to fire back on all these defences and units that have been put in place to stop the salamanders. So an excellent switch up. We've also got a lot of AA ships, or about 3. But this is going to be more than enough to take down a good deal of these bombers. And we can see the distributed con turrets, there's still 17 remaining. We're going to have another pass, however. 12 of 24 remaining. Manually built by the looks of them in this weird pattern. Excellent stuff. Now we see the T2 factory go to an experimental gantry here, which can also build the flagship. So rather than build it out of the shipyard, it's getting built out of the experimental gantry. Just some battleships and cruisers being able to apply some early pressure to this whole area here. In the sea, we have this Black Hydra being produced, followed up by a number of Shiver. And finally, before the half an hour mark, we shall see this whole area kaputted, despite the northern team trying to hang on desperately in the face of the varied waves of Snow Maze. All this mayhem we see on Snow Maze's side, and now we see on the opposing side, exploiting by Donny 18, and not actually able to break through whatsoever, despite winning this whole sea and wiping out these players here. Donny 18 can't break through. Snow Maze here has built a number of Shivers and is moving forward. Now this will be the second or third lot of Shivers, and still the defences haven't been adequate to stop them wreaking total havoc here. So the pressure has just been relentless. A couple of tachyon beams, partially saving the base. A narrow thing in the end. Snow Maze says, wow, so much pulsar. I'm impressed too, Snow Maze. That would be my reaction. Like, oh my god, that's so much pulsar. I expected them just to roll over and die, and not super build pulsar on their eco line. That's why you have to attack in a big group, not allow that to happen. Tip number 9. Some methods to defend against Lost Sea on the open side. Well, that's a bloody mouthful, isn't it? But yeah, it's basically sea defense, guys. Alright, so we've got this massive area here we need to defend against. Let's build some defenses. Now, the pit bulls are excellent because they tuck away and they can actually take a decent blast. And if the enemy doesn't have decent sight at all times, they're going to be having a bit of a guess as to where your defenses are. And the radar image is never accurate and everything, so it's worth it to maybe put down some pit bulls in this open area here. Definitely on this side, putting down a good 20 pit bulls is going to be an absolutely epic defense to protect from all the different amphibious invasions against something apart from maybe Shivers. Might be the sole thing that actually gets through here. A whole heap of Shivers, but it's pretty much going to be able to put up with whatever the enemy chucks at you. And the same over here, we see the defensive line put in place. So it's not the end of the world. You've just got to realise the defensive line at this stage of the game has basically moved to here, and that's where everything's got to be. And so hopefully your side has won the Navy here. If your side hasn't won the Navy here, you're probably done, because all of this side is taken out as well. Snowmay's at the moment been able to move these shivers through, and this is what you'll see on the side which doesn't have their defences up yet. They have built some random beamers here to protect against things, but there's still this hole here. Okay, and even here, there's a big hole. Very easily exploitable, even a few shivers having an absolute devastating effect. So it is vital you do recognise when the flagship's out, it's a ticking time till you get invaded, and you've got to build defences alongside this line. Another tip we can do for defence here is to build a line of ticks to patrol down near where the ships are. Maybe a little bit further back so they're not exposed to cruiser beam fire. Look at the beam on the Black Hydra, actually, is quite reasonable. So maybe down across here, just to give a little bit of visibility and ensure you have some heads up to move some units down to aid your defensive lines. A big attack here from Air Boogie Jesus. Fantastic job. Breaching the enemy lines. It is so hard to stop the air coming through here. So even if you can defeat the land here with all these defences, and we see some AA, a long-range anti-air here, really you need a little bit more time. So I would say maybe around here you need to have some T2 AA or something like that. Your fighters patrolling down here, a whole swab of them, and just be super aware of any air attacks. So many bombing runs get through on this angle for whatever reason. So something cool is using a gunslinger lion to defend the open sea against crocodiles. They're quite good against hovercraft, aren't they? The skirmisher in a line is not a bad unit, as you might think, just to do this, because they're holding a hard attack. They're not trying to basically hold against long-range units. Unfortunately, there a little bit of eco was actually gotten. Fortunately, the reactors were saved. The energy converters definitely should be over here, being so vulnerable. The day was saved by the Shurikens, but the gunslingers basically didn't take a casualty, and they're healing right up right away. So if you've ever got a mission-critical area like this, you've got to protect just from an insane suicidal attack. The gunslinger's probably about your best unit for doing that. So on the other hand, this is not how you use gunslingers. Facing off against... Oh my god. Okay, that was a bit unfortunate. So, the gunslinger moving down to, I guess, was trying to move this cruise missile ship, was trying to deflect that. So they're on a bit of a suicidal charge. They actually managed to take it down. But a very expensive way to do that. But the naval forces here are... This is a job for snipers. So overall, although the gunslingers were useful in rebutting a hovercraft attack, I think snipers would have been overall useful for keeping the cruise missile ships back off the coast and trying to save this. Probably an impossible task overall, though. The advanced geothermal here should have been turned into a crude. So we see here the use of the Armageddon to deliver what? Can't hit a lot of up here because it's protected by nuke shields, but can hit over here where a collection of troops are. So at the cost of 8 metal a second and a very slow rate of fire, it is nonetheless a defensive option. One of the most effective ways to probably push back on it, actually. All this metal. Kaboom! Holy hell. Almost got the collection of T3 in the blast. That was unlucky. Of course, now saying that is quite often you will have a anti-nuke ship here. So just try and scout that out first with the force. That was a little bit of negligence on DRM's part to not bring one across. But if they don't, punish it. Because Navy would be one of the most efficient uses of a nuke. We can see another firing is taking place with 300 kills. And we see it targeting somewhere around here, I do believe, as this offensive takes shape on this predictable path. It's going to hit right in the smack bang middle. Excellent estimation. Oh, the shivers are half dead. You can't really protect against that, so that is why both, I guess, the Armageddon's very good actually defensively, and the Leash is very good defensively. Because quite often the attacking forces don't have proper defenses against that. They can't sit behind their anti-nuke shields or their heavy AA. They have to bring them with them, and that's not really cost effective or thought of. Tip number 10, the importance of team roles. Now, even in high OS, we see a lot of, I suppose, disparaging comments and commentary on, geez, you're not playing air, you're not playing navy, you're not playing front. It's like people should know this, right? And if you ever join up with a lobby, particularly a high OS one, you've got to play your role in the way it's meant to be played, because you're part of a team. If you don't function as everyone expects, then inevitably things start to go sideways, right? The navy roles are really obvious. We've covered them pretty well. But just to overview, I never see the open navy not contest the seas. That's basically suicide, to allow this other navy to come in and bombard from the early game, mess up geo. You don't want that. So never ever don't play navy. On the other hand, the closed sea can not play navy or delay it however much they want to, because it really relies on perhaps 15 minutes or so into the game before this open navy can come up and bombard with cruisers and things like that effectively. And even then, it's much easier to defend and build some defenses here to stop that or to help mitigate it. But basically, navy comes down to watching videos like these, getting a few tips, trying a few builds, and skill. And if you're just a lot worse than the adversary naval player, it's going to be a matter of time before you crumple, right? So hold out as long as you can. And probably best to let your teammates know you're losing the battle as well, so they can prepare, rather than all of a sudden getting hit by surprise amphibious attacks when they thought that front was relatively safe. So letting people know is always good, because what happens is, in any sort of game, we're just locked into what we're doing. The majority of us, some of us have really good map awareness, some of us don't all the time, so the more communication the better. Front is another one that's a little bit like, you've got to just do certain things, okay? If you put up there, now this is generally considered a noob spot, despite its importance, but that's because it's really limited. All you've got to do is hold on. You shouldn't really be making plays. In saying that, I've been able to break the game open from the front before using Whistlers and Yanis. I think that's why the Warden meta is here, that's actually shut that down, particularly Whistler plays. But to be honest with you, I'd blow just through that just by using enough Yanis. Unless you can utilize a vehicle strategy like that, preferably from this position here, with just a little bit more eco, then yeah, otherwise front is simply a punching bag, particularly by the time you get to the 10-minute stage or so, 9-minute stage now, when you're up against snipers and things like that. And all you're there to is basically be a target for the enemy, build some long-range things the best you're able to, build some ticks. The first 10 minutes, though, is very pivotal to play it in a meta way and hold on the best you possibly can. Now, one area I sort of haven't looked at in detail with my Isthmus tips is these two positions here. So I'll just break these down quickly. Is Advanced Geo. You should be getting and looking at like a 6-minute T2 lab, something like that, to get some early T2 through to the front. You can do that by building res bots for energy, getting an early geothermal between the 3 to 4 minute mark, and then getting a fairly early advanced geo once you've built that T2 constructor. Go crazy with the wind turbines, of course, can super build them with construction turrets. That's another smart tactic. And building energy converters, even T1, to get you out of the gate is going to be really wise also. This, by the way, isn't enough energy converters by far. Build like, 24 by the 30-minute stage, particularly if you built this many wind turbines. That's the geo spot, essentially, and you've got a range of plays. Snipers popular, Stars popular. I don't think Fat Boy would be the worst strategy either. Get an early Fat Boy out there and support the front. Now, the Pond one is funny. We've seen this player boost actually both front players. Maybe that's the meta now. I'm not 100% sure on that. Pond's a funny one because it doesn't really have a lot of eco. It's called Pond because you've got access to this pond here where you can, I guess, build more eco. You can build tidal generators and tidal energy converters. This one is more supposed to fortify the front line a little bit more consistently and earlier than Advanced Geo as they eco up a little bit. You're supposed to basically rush out a heap of units to reinforce. and make sure these two players don't die. As we can see here, the bot lab's been reclaimed at about the 13-minute 12 mark, looking at the 14-minute mark. I quite like in the pond position rushing hovercraft, myself, goons in particular, to come in around here and to attack. It's a whole lot of fun and it's extremely successful. But yeah, apparently a lot of people hate you using hovercraft. I don't know why that is. I even found harbourds very, very effective because they're able to come out and basically come in from the side, the sea lane here, and take on all the static defences from a lateral angle, which the players, they don't expect it. It's something you can try. A couple of tips for you. This is supposed to be the noob spot here. I guess the pond can be a bit of a noob spot, but the advanced geo should be a bit more of a high OS spot. So if I was to say the 3 lowest OS should be here, the mid OS should be playing these roles, and the high OS to me should actually be playing these roles here. Because all of these roles are just game changers. The advanced geo and the amount of eco and the early T2, and then T3 can get on board. And the same with these, it's important. These are the most effective players in the game. Now, air and eco, of course, can have a high OS in it too and can be fairly effective. Eco, I should call them tech. The tech position here, though, as important as it is, you're basically there, to give out T2 constructors. Well, not to give out, but for people to pay for them. But the tech position is most important, is that you scale correctly while helping out the line when it needs it or the specific instance. But it's pretty easy. Like, you don't need high OS players to do any of this. If naval's in trouble, guess what? Build platypus. Help support your navy guys. I don't see it happen often enough, but when it does happen, it's quite effective. When your navy has one on either side, and it's the 20-minute or so mark, start building marauders through, rush them through. Also, you can, just rush marauders through there, actually. Don't have to always go the predictable path. So you can help out with any amphibious pressure at the 20-minute mark. That's how you help navy. With the front, you can help out with tick spam, of course, is the most common one. Also, you can help, I don't see it enough, is with snipers. So you can help with tick spam. I don't ever see it in snipers. I quite often help with snipers, the tech position, and it holds the whole front line. I don't know why people don't do it. I guess because it takes up actually a little bit of resources and tech likes to be as greedy as possible. And then you should help out with, I guess, T3 units and bigger units when they come online. Also, because it's such a narrow area here, really I would argue if you're tech, use the hill. Build static defenses here, even if they're not available. That's the best way to contribute to the front line, make sure it holds. But again, it depends. If these players are absolutely fine at the front, don't worry about it. You might as well just concentrate on scaling. But just keep in mind with the scaling side of things, the scaling is in order to reach certain timings for you to create pressure dilemmas. If you're not creating dilemmas for the enemy, either with marauder attacks, I don't know, vanguards on the front, just something to pressure the enemy team, then you're not really living the tech up to its potential. But in saying that, that's why a high OS can really carry the game from the backline. But again, even a high OS is going to be APN limited. Like, they can't save the whole team. They can't be defense and create pressure all the time. It's asking too much of even a high OS. Over here with the air, again, doesn't need to be a high OS player. It's pretty easy to play this air, to be honest with you. The one thing you do need to be mindful of, though, is to just build enough fighters and make sure you're scouting the seas to either side so that you don't get hit by a surprise air attack from the sides here. Also, you can give your sea a bit of vision. Help out your sea, sure, with a few torpedo launchers or shuriken if it's really critical. But otherwise, I mean, just build fighters. Just build fighters. And if it gets to the stage where you feel you're testing out the enemy air, preferably over the sea or somewhere where there's a not whole heap of anti-air that will knock you down, right? So if you're pushing and you see the fighter defense is a little bit weak, build some bombers and bomb the enemy. It can be at a range of stages. I don't think it should be necessarily before the 12-minute mark or so. Yeah, 12-minute mark to 30-minute mark is great, or even after that, whenever there's a weakness. And the best use I've seen of air, actually, I think you should play Cortex as air just for the access to the shurikens to help out Navy. But even if you have that, get an Armada Conbot off someone and tech into atomic bombers. because that is going to be like the Shuriken on steroids for helping out your naval friends and taking down capital ships, including flagships, really quickly. Because yes, they might be surrounded by a heap of AA ships, right? Where you might have to send a few more atomic bombers and fighters and what have you and surprise attack them somehow. But that might be critical for your team. Lichers are seriously one of the most overpowered units that air can use. I don't know why everyone doesn't build them. So yeah, let's just go ahead and I'm going to see what I mean. So to me, the naval, you just got to be good at. The advanced geo, you've just got to be good at. The front and the pond, you've just got to hold. The tech, you've got to support or create pressure where needed. It's relatively high OS to know how to do that. You can't be a noob and do it. And over here, again, relatively high OS the air, simply just because it doesn't need to be. Like, you can just create fighters and be fine. But it's simply so important because I see so many games ended by air. It's just crazy. They're the main playmakers of the game. And being able to detect when to put through a bombing run, absolutely game-changing. So we're going to see that in this game here, where we have green here gaining air superiority against Selv. Now, how that has happened is there's been these huge pushes, and Selv is lightly worried about having enough forces, so has built some wasps. But what that has meant is there's not enough fighters in the sky. And so now all the wasps are dead, and I think the air player is not long for this world. Now we see fighter superiority reached. We're going to quickly see, I'm guessing, bombers built. There's not even any AA, and this is the point of building some AA, is to just make sure these fighters don't loiter, even if it's just one piece. This is a very bad sign. And yep, what's getting built at the moment is the bombers. Even DRM is saying bomb. Desperately, Selv is trying to build enough forces. Now, in this position here, what should be getting built also is anti-air. Even long range. At least be building a couple of flak terminals. It wouldn't be the worst idea either to reclaim your APHIS reactors and converters. As crazy as that sounds. But you're going to get bombed. Like, it's just so obvious. And the thing about stopping any bombing run is you do need to have the fighter supremacy. So if you have less fighters than them, obviously you're going to die. But even if you're about even, you're still not going to be able to stop the bombers reliably. You might be able to target and take them out, mind you, if you play it very well. But quite often you need more fighters than what the enemy has. So we see Selv going full into fighter production. Will it be enough? We see 30, 40 T2 fighters. And how many on the opposing side? About 70. Not placed correctly. Some anti-air, not enough. The bombers coming through pretty much scot-free, unmolested, right into the APHIS. Massive overkill. But because it's such a line of bombers, there's still 8 available for taking on the next target. So an absolute disaster. Fortunately, survives because the bombing was split up and not concentrating on the APHIS. A design goes up, but this game goes on much, much longer. So here we see a second bombing run underway. Roughly 17 bombers coming in. Exact same path they always come. Getting straight, but we see this fighter intercept at the last moment. Oh, just in the back of time. Look at this. The help of some flak. Oh, that's the luckiest APHIS. Twice it's been hit and twice it has survived. So getting the angle on the bombers there, genius. So I'm guessing as the bombers are going to reliably come up here and the fighter screen is probably going to come and precede them, then it's best you actually have your fighters here, get vision on them relatively early if you can, bring them down, take them out. I hope you enjoyed this long-ass video today. It took me forever to edit. Absolutely forever. So if you want more, let me know. Otherwise, I might make them a bit shorter. I'll be following up this video with a very detailed sea guide that's even more detailed than this on a couple of builds you can utilize to win sea. I feel like these are secrets I should keep to myself, but I'll let you guys in on it. What's the point of keeping secrets on this YouTube channel? If you Supreme players do have some extra tips, please put them in the comments below so everyone can see them. and that way we can hopefully have one main place for the top tips of Supreme Isthmus right here in this video. That would be my dream. Like and subscribe, guys, and I'd be very happy. Thank you, and see you next video.